This is Fred Hadley from the Village Century, and we're at Curaleaf, a medical marijuana dispensary in Deerfield Beach, Florida. And we're talking with Stephanie and Sean, who work here. And we're going to find out about this new trend in medical treatment called medical marijuana. How are you?
We're great, thank you. Thanks,
good.
Fred. Thanks for having us.
Sure.
How are you doing today?
Fine. Tell us a little about Curaleaf, your company. Just a brief overview, the extent of it and the presence in Florida.
Sure. So we were one of the first licensed medical marijuana treatment centers in the state of Florida. There were originally 4 or 5, and we were one of the first who were issued a license.
Right.
We also are a national company, and we are in about 10 or 11 states at this time. We currently have 23 dispensaries throughout the entire state. This is a vertically integrated state where some other states might be horizontal. Therefore, the main difference is in the state of Florida, you are required to do seed to sale. So what every medical marijuana treatment center must have the seeds grow, process, extract, bottle, deliver all within one company, where other states, they're horizontal, where you can be a third party who just has a dispensary and distributes different products. So that's the rules in the state of Florida.
Right, and within your company, I would assume that you must stay within each state. There's no interstate shipment, is that correct?
Correct, you're not allowed to cross state lines.
How do you get started? In other words, where'd you get the first seed from?
Do you know where we got the first seed?
Is that a fair question? In other words,
It's a
it's
fair
like-
question,
It is a
but
fair question,
it is,
but
yeah.
I don't have the answer.
I
Like
don't
a
have
chicken
the-
and egg,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. The seeds came before we did, so
Oh.
they're the egg, we're the chickens, I guess.
Sure.
So, but I mean, I think everything came from the state of Florida.
Okay. Now, marijuana is a plant, and it's a very easy plant to cultivate. Tell us a little about the process. First of all, is your cultivation done indoor or outdoor or mixture?
So our cultivation is done indoors.
Indoors.
Yeah,
Why is that? What's the advantage of indoor?
Well, you can control the environment. You know, you want to, especially in Florida with the humidity, you have to be careful on everything that you do. So they control the environment with our grow houses that we have.
Okay.
And we have 2 in the state of Florida.
And you have 2 in the state of Florida. And what's the approximate size of a grow facility? A square block, a square mile? I mean,
Well,
just ballpark.
I can tell you that our newest facility that we opened is 400,000 square foot.
400,000 square feet. That sounds pretty
Pretty big.
huge.
It's much
Is that
big-
all on one level?
Yeah, it's all ground
Right,
level. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And, all right, what goes into growing marijuana? Do you use soil or is it hydroponic?
It is hydroponic.
So there's no soil.
There is,
It's-
we don't grow, so that's
Oh,
why
I
you're right.
see.
So we're not
Sure.
the grower,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
we don't know the whole process. But
Fair enough.
what I can tell you is that everything has to be tested. Everything has to be. We can't say we're organic because everything in the facility has to be organic. But anything that's used to grow is an organic product. We want to make sure there's no contaminants, no pesticides. So even if it's soil, if they do use soil, which I honestly just don't remember.
Okay.
I haven't been down there in a while, but everything is clear of contaminants and highly tested because we are very regulated, much more so than the hemp industry, the over-the-counter CBD products that you can buy online or in flea markets or stores. So we have to make sure everything's completely tested and clean.
Right. And inside these facilities, what about the lighting? You use special high-intensity?
Yes, the lighting, depending on where the plant is in the growth cycle, they'll leave the lighting on longer, shorter periods of time. It just depends on where it's at within the growth cycle.
Now, plants breathe carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. That's what I was taught in grade school.
Yeah.
Is there such a thing? I remember back in the 60s, they used to sell these things in magazines. Is there such a thing as CO2 enrichment in the grow process? Carbon dioxide?
Yes.
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 So
Yes.
all of your facilities are...
So I can't attest to that because again, I'm not
Sure,
part
sure.
of the
But it is-
cultivation.
So I noticed on one of your website is the reference to a CO2 product.
Yeah, it's a CO2 extraction method. So one of the methods in which we extract the medicine and the oils from the plant is through a CO2 extraction, which is one of the more natural ways of extracting the medicine. So you're not using any alcohol or any contaminant to extract the medicine. So it's in its purest form, and then it's run through again to then remove all the CO2 that was used in the extraction process.
Okay, fine. Now, what about training? What is your position, Stephanie, here? I have your card. It says Senior Physician Outreach Manager. Did you require any special training or degree or background in order to?
So no, so I came, my job previous to this was a pharmaceutical rep, okay? So basically my position is, a lot of education is required in this industry. A lot of doctors, although they are certified because they took a 2-hour course given by the Department of Health to order medical marijuana for patients, they still need a lot of education. This is nothing they learned in medical school. They didn't learn the endocannabinoid system. So it is my job with my team, so we're covered throughout the whole state, to educate physicians on the laws, the dosing, the products, how to recommend this for patients, as well as educating the general public and communities and organizations that still also want to know, what is this? How do patients get it? What is the benefits? Are there any negatives? That's our job. So I manage a team of outreach people. So what readied me for this situation was being out in the field. I do have a health and wellness background as well, and that combined with my knowledge of how to work doctors' offices and practices and be out there educating was what made me a good fit for this. And then once I got here, the internal cannabis training came along with that, and then I did a lot of studying on my own, because honestly, anything you want to know about cannabis, if you Google it, you'll find it.
Sure. Now, you mentioned dosage and everything. How do you control the potency? Is that something done from the moment the seed is planted, or do you harvest your crop, then analyze it and sort it by potency? Is that a reasonable question?
That's exactly what they do. They analyze it and do testing, and then they sort it, because we can get different percentages of THC in our products depending on the harvest.
Now, for those that are not familiar with the term, THC is, of course, tetrahydrocannabinol.
If you say
And
so.
that would be the euphoria-inducing component in marijuana. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or?
Yes,
Right.
yes. It does have, besides creating euphoria,
Right.
don't be fooled. It has a lot of medical benefits to it besides that. Because,
sure.
and there's a lot of misunderstanding about that, because you'll have a lot of patients that say, I don't want to get high. The problem is that without that THC, certain ailments that they're suffering from, like whether it's nauseous if they're taking chemo and they can't eat, they have no appetite, or have neuropathic pain or neuropathies, without the THC, they're not going to get the benefit that they need with just CBD alone.
Right. Now, the non-euphoric component is what, CBD? Can you pronounce that for us?
CBD?
Well, no, the full...
Sorry, we're having fun here.
Absolutely.
I don't have
Cannabidiol.
I have to see it.
Cannabidiol?
I know, it's a hard one to
Cannabidiol.
pronounce. Now, that would be...
Just don't ask me to spell it.
for other ailments that don't produce any euphoric effect.
Correct, and
So-
and CBD, the easy way to pronounce it, is really beneficial for, it's a great and anti-inflammatory. It's wonderful for inflammation. A lot of people know epileptic patients use it, so it's great for seizures and tremors and muscle spasms, as well as anxiety, because the reason why it helps with muscle spasms and seizures is because it calms things down. So anything that's calmed down is going to be less of, so you have less seizures, less muscle spasms, less inflammation.
All right, let's track an imaginary patient, Mary.
Okay.
She's got certain symptoms, whether it's back pain or anxiety or whatever. She goes to her physician, and what does the law state right now? How does one obtain a prescription for medical marijuana?
So-
By the way, just so that everybody knows the status of the law, medical marijuana is now fully legal, even in flower form in Florida. Is that correct?
Correct. The
Right.
only form that's not yet legal are edibles.
Edibles, okay. And other types of marijuana, sometimes known as adult use, which is the preferred term, I think, than recreational, are not yet legal in Florida.
Correct.
Right. So this hypothetical patient, Mary, goes to her physician, and doesn't she have to have one of a list of qualifying diseases or conditions or
Yes.
debilitating? Well, yeah. So what are some of those conditions?
Well, HIV, AIDS.
In other words, anyone that's HIV positive, even if they're feeling well, which I don't know if that's a possibility, but that automatically gives you a card?
Correct.
Okay, what else?
If you've been diagnosed with a
Right,
condition.
MS is one of them also.
Multiple sclerosis, right?
Yep, glaucoma.
I remember the first legal
always
marijuana
leave my fingers.
cigarette was produced in Mississippi for Robert somebody, I forgot his
Yeah,
name.
for
The
glaucoma,
the only
yeah.
legal prescriptive.
Yeah, there's still one left, and I know him, and his name on block. He's in Miami,
Yeah.
and he still receives his marijuana from the government.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But so also you have ALS. I always have to count on my fingers so
Yep.
I don't remember.
PTSD.
PTSD, Crohn's disease, epilepsy. You mentioned glaucoma, of course, cancer. There's 8 or 9, and then you have chronic non-malignant pain. However, in the law, it says chronic non-malignant pain that's caused by one of those qualifying conditions.
Right.
But then there's this one section that really helps. It's called same kind or class as one of the above mentioned qualifying condition, which basically is saying the physician has can use their own discretion to determine if you have, let's say, anxiety, depression, insomnia. You may not have been diagnosed with PTSD, but because those conditions and what you're experiencing are the same as a patient with PTSD, therefore, because they qualify, you qualify.
Right.
So
Just,
that's
just
how
for our lay viewers, that's
Right.
post-traumatic
Traumatic
stress
stress
disorder.
disorder. Correct.
And that would be something that one normally associates with veterans, say, of
right,
Sure.
or a,
Iraq War, Afghanistan War.
right, or a major life-changing event.
Car accident.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's a lot
now,
of different types.
Let's talk about, we've already mentioned that there's flour is now legal for sale. Can you give us a little of the history? I understand our governor, DeSantis, was very instrumental in making that available as a form of therapy, the smokable marijuana. Can you
Correct.
talk a little about that, and why do you think that's so, and is the effectiveness compared with other ways of administering cannabis?
Sure.
Yeah, with the flour, which we offer in pre-rolls and in whole flour.
A pre-roll is what we used to call a cigarette or a joint.
Right.
Right, okay.
Yes, and with the governor passing, we really didn't expect it for a while, but he's a huge advocate of what medical marijuana does for patients and the help that it gives them. With the sorry, I'm having a mind freeze here.
The Amendment 2?
Yeah, with with Amendment 2, the patient will have to go and see their physician because they'll have to sign a form stating that they want smokable, because some physicians don't advocate smokable because of the carcinogens by using that versus vape. So they will have to see their medical marijuana doctor to sign a form for that. The doctor will then put a notation within the Department of Health site stating in the notes that they can purchase smokable.
What's the advantage of smokable in terms of efficacy and speed of delivery to the...
Well, the smokable is, and first of all, this was something that had been in the court system, So a lot of people, since the onset of the state taking on medical marijuana, approving it, they have always denied the availability of the right to smoke it. They didn't want that.
Why is that? Why do you suppose that
Well,
is?
because the stigma of smoking something with the carcinogens and what it could do to the lungs and lung cancer and lung disease. So that was one reason why they were afraid of it.
Do you think that they also had a fear that just one step away now from total legalization?
I don't know. I don't know
Sure.
what was in their minds. From what I know, I think it was more the fear of the smoking and what smoking can
Okay.
do to the lungs, as we know how bad cigarette smoking can be for you.
Right.
So, but a lot of people were instrumental in, in trying to get this passed, and there were a lot of lawsuits, and there were back and forth and back and forth. So it had still been in the court system until Governor DeSantis came in and said, okay, I want this passed, let's get this out of the court system, let's get this done. So he went ahead and made sure that it got passed.
Now-
And the main reason that a lot of people wanted to have access to smokable is because it's what we call the entourage effect, which is the full benefit of the plant without any alterations whatsoever. So you're not, the plant itself has so many amazing components from terpenes and phytocannabinoids and all these other things that are in it, that when you extract, you're extracting good, but you're leaving good behind. So the theory is behind getting the full plant is that you're getting the maximum benefit of everything the plant has to offer, and also the other benefit of the route. But this is also the same benefit as when you're vaping it, like an e-cigarette, where you're not lighting anything, is quick onset. The onset is it could be a couple of minutes up to 10, 15 minutes. It may only last 1 to 2 hours, but when you're in a lot of pain or having an attack or a seizure or something, and you need something quickly, or a migraine or something like that, the inhalation method, whether it's smokable or vaping, is going to be one of your fastest onsets to get it into you.
And that's with our tinctures that we offer. When people need immediate relief, they can either vape or smoke.
Right.
But if they want a longer term, benefits from the pain that they're in, they can use a tincture, which could last 8 to 12 hours.
And how is that administered? Is that sublingual?
It's sublingual or
Which
oral.
means what for our lay
Under the
viewers?
tongue.
Under the tongue.
Yeah, or orally, where they could.
Now, what happens when it's placed under the tongue? How does it get into the bloodstream?
It's
Through-
absorbed through the tissue under the tongue.
Right, the mucous membranes or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, and it gets absorbed, but then also when you're talking, unless it's a 100% true sublingual,
Right.
and I don't think ours is 100% true sublingual. So the idea is you want to get absorbed as much as you can in the mouth, under
Right.
the tongue, or in the cheeks, so it gets into the bloodstream, so it starts working a little quicker. The rest of it is still going to have to be metabolized and digested and processed through the liver, which is why you don't get the full effect of a sublingual or a tincture really for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. That's when you get the full effect of it, but then you may, after that 2 hours, you may have another 4 to 6 hours of total relief. So what some people like to do is combine them. So you take a little bit of an inhalation method, at the same time you take an oral method, whether it's a capsule or a tincture.
Right.
So by the time the inhalation wears off, the oral kicks in and you have a longer stretch of relief without having to use inhalation every 2 to 3 hours.
Right, and you interested me when you talked about the entourage effect. Would that sort of like be a synthetic vitamin pill versus eating a real tomato? In other words, there might be substances in the tomato that you get that might not be in
Well,
that.
you're just getting everything.
You're getting everything.
You're getting everything where it's not been processed, it's not gone through different methods to package it. It's just
A seed is
Wow.
planted, how long does it take to mature and actually be able to be dispensed? What's the cycle?
About 3 to 4 months.
yeah. We try to turn over our crops. It could be as little as 8 weeks. It just depends on the plants that are being used and what we're doing.
And do you stagger? You would stagger, right? You don't just have everything turn over the same day and then you don't have anything?
Correct,
Right,
correct. You
right.
have to have a continuous chain. So
Sure.
Right.
as one depletes, the next is ready to
Right.
be
In
put on
your
the market.
largest grow facility, about how many people would be employed there on a daily basis? Is it dozens or is it one or two?
Yeah, I would say dozens.
Dozens.
Yeah,
30.
and it's a 24-hour operation.
24 hours.
Yeah.
And
They never sleep.
on your website, they talk about the Sea of Green method. That's a new one to me.
I'm not familiar.
I'm not familiar with that
Yeah,
either.
yeah, it
The
was
Sea
on
of
there.
Green method. Okay, I'll have to look that one
But
up.
when they cultivate it, they do it by Sea of Green. I just assume.
Well, I think that they're really, it's just they're just saying that as far out as you can see,
Oh,
it's just all
Yeah,
green.
exactly.
Sure.
Okay,
I
yeah,
mean,
now I
it's,
gotcha. Yeah.
I see. It's more of just a description.
Yeah, it's a more a description of the enormity of all
Yeah.
the green. I don't know if you've ever flown into Asheville, North Carolina.
No.
So you fly into, just to diverse for a second.
Yeah.
So you fly into to Asheville, North Carolina, and it looks like you're flying into broccoli. There are
Oh.
these huge bulbous green
Oh,
trees,
sure.
and you see nothing but green, and I feel like I'm going
Right.
into a sea of broccoli.
Right.
I think that's kind of what
So it's a marketing gimmick, it's nothing really.
yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
description of what it looks like.
UKU, or is it UKU? I've seen that on the website, UKU.
UKU?
UKU.
Are you referring to a possible strain like a Kush?
No,
What
no,
do you-
no.
I don't think
It was a product category.
I think that I'm not sure if that's in Florida though.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you might have been, because if you go on, you have to choose what state.
Right.
So if you
It'll
didn't
break it
choose
down.
Florida,
I
it
see.
might have been from another state,
Sure.
because I have not
Now,
heard
what
of
do they
that.
mean by craft? We know a craft beer and craft bagel. What is craft cannabis? It's like a
Well, I mean,
designer
you're
cannabis?
growing it for specific types of strains for the product needs. You know, that's basically just what it's crafted.
It's
through
crafted
the growth
towards,
process.
right.
Okay. Now, so now Mary, she's been approved for one of those debilitating conditions, and she's given a prescription. What does it say on that prescription? Is there a dosage? Is there or is it just a blank check?
So it's called a recommendation.
Right.
They don't call it a prescription because
Okay.
they
You're
can.
not allowed legally under
Right, plus-
Schedule 1 narcotics still, right?
Correct, and
Correct.
it's more also because they have options.
Ah,
So where a prescription, it's pretty much going to be either that form or generic form.
okay.
So it's more geared towards that. So they'll bring their medical records to their medical marijuana doctor because he'll have to see proof of their condition. And I know Stephanie knows the drill on that
Yeah.
too. That they'll determine the needs of the patient, and the doctor will give them an option of routes. Well, the doctor will recommend certain routes, which you have medical cannabis and low THC, which is CBD. So your routes are inhalation, oral, sublingual, and topical in both sides.
And there's
With
also
the new
suppositories as well.
Okay.
There's also
Suppository
suppository
as
for
well?
those patients who
Okay.
we don't,
Sure.
but it is for those patients who cannot get it any other
Sure,
way.
sure,
You know,
And then, of course, smokable. The state is working on the route method for that at this present time, but we do list it in there. And then the doctor will give them a number of milligrams or ounces, if it's smokable, that they can get per 70-day period. The physician can write up to a 210-day recommendation, 70 days at a time, where it'll open up for the first 70 days, it'll close, the next one will open up, and then he'll prescribe, he will recommend, I'm so used to that.
Right.
It's hard to
I have
kick the habit, I know.
I have a 30
Pharmacy.
years of pharmacy background. So the physician will give the recommendation in milligrams per 70 days per route.
The best way I like to explain it to a patient is you have a bank of milligrams for 70 days, which you can utilize as you see fit. So I always say to a patient, don't go and use all of them at one time. You want to try little by little by little, because you don't want to go out and buy a whole batch load of products and then find something wasn't the best for you and you needed
Sure.
to switch it out, and some other strain might work better for you. You can come back to the dispensary as much as you want within that 70 days.
Now, the milligrams is exactly what? Usually, when you buy flower leaf, it's
Right.
sold in grams. A
Right.
milligram is a thousandth of a gram. What is the milligram measuring? What are we measuring?
So the milligram is measuring the milligrams per either CBD
I
or
see.
THC that you're
Okay.
getting. So if a doctor puts in an order for you for the medical, which is the higher THC,
Right.
if he says you're allowed 10 milligrams 4 times a day, he's saying you're allowed 10 milligrams of THC 4 times a day. So that's how we dispense it.
I see.
So we can keep track of how many milligrams you've received, and when it's over, then the next 70-day order will kick in.
Now, does the doctor recommend the form of administration?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes.
and that's printed on the recommendation, so
So they don't leave with anything. Everything's contained on the MMUR, or Medical Marijuana Use Registry. The doctors place their patients there. The patients go on there to do their application and set up their profile, and that's where the doctor places the order. And the reason why it's done this way is so any dispensary can pull up this
so
registry.
it's all computerized.
And it's all computerized, so you
database.
don't leave
So
with.
there's no such thing as a card?
No.
I've seen cards.
Well, no, they have
No.
a medical marijuana card. They had to present that when they come into the dispensary so that we can pull them up to verify who they are.
That's like their driver's license. That's their identification of the medical marijuana program, but
Right.
it has nothing to do with your order.
Right.
But like in pharmaceuticals, a lot of times we were used to leaving with a piece of paper that we could never read,
Right.
and it
Right,
would say
right.
whatever it said on it, and you bring it to the pharmacy. Here, everything's placed on this website for you. You don't leave with anything unless the doctor wrote a specific.
So
specific
if somebody
note.
is recommended one form of administration and they came in here and said, look, I really want flour, can you have to stick with the doctor's recommendation?
It's all about route and milligrams.
Sure.
Or ounces.
The patient could go back to their doctor and call them and say, hey, you didn't order me flour, I would like to try it, can you add that to my order? And the doctor could edit it and add another route.
Okay.
If they want.
Let's briefly just touch on the two different strains of marijuana. It's indica and sativa, is that correct? And then there are hybrids that are
Correct.
partial. What are the advantages of indica versus sativa?
Well, sativa would be something that you would want to use in the morning to help lift you up, to get you going, and also it will help with your pain. And our hybrids are more of midday use because it's a great mix of both. So that would be an afternoon. You wouldn't want to use that closer to the evening time. And then your indica is going to be great for pain and also to help you relax and sleep.
What about sleep? A lot of, this is, we represent Century Village community, and it's an over 55 community. And a lot of seniors are afflicted with insomnia. I know myself, I used to sleep 8-9 hours when I was younger. Now
Sure.
I don't seem to sleep more than 4 or 5, 6 hours. How effective are patients finding cannabis?
They're finding it very effective, and it's also going to be on what they take. So if you take a capsule, that's going to help you sleep all night long because it has a longer length of time that it will work for them. A lot of people also take tinctures because that will help them sleep for a longer period of time. And if they were to do a vape or a smokable, it may not keep them asleep all night long because the effects is only going to be a few hours.
Okay.
I'll speak personally. I do have terrible insomnia. I was giving a prescription for a sleeping pill, which I never took because I am afraid of the addiction of it and being dependent on it. So I did try our indica. And I have to say that it really does help. It just helps. What I found for me, it quiets my brain down. I'm a thinker, right? And I get into bed and I think about everything I didn't do and everything I have to do and how I can save this and help this. So I can't quiet my mind down. And I found that with the indica, it sort of quieted my mind down where I just peacefully would fall asleep and stay asleep. So that's how I can talk from experience with that.
By the way, a little device to remember what does what. I think I got this from Urban Dictionary.
Oh, Indicouch.
Right, indica is in the couch.
Exactly.
Right. You just
Yep.
want to mellow out, what we
Yep.
used to say, and
Exactly.
close your eyes and relax.
Exactly.
And the sativas are better. Let's say you're a creative person, a poet or a painter.
It'll help you think. It'll help you concentrate.
It'll help you concentrate.
But here's the ironic part about all this: because everybody's endocannabinoid system is completely different. Every once in a while, you get a patient that says, "Indicas make me stay awake,"
Yep.
and they'll actually use a sativa or a hybrid to help them sleep. So
That's part of the process of finding out what
what's
works for
best
your
you.
body.
Individual
Exactly.
chemistry of
Exactly.
the user.
Yeah, everyone hates to hear that trial by error. However,
It's
it's
very
very
true.
true in this industry with these
Absolutely.
medicines.
All right, let's talk about consumer interest. How costly is this therapy?
So as far as the physician, the medical marijuana physician, that could be different amounts of money. It just depends on the physician themselves.
A few $100 for...
It could be $100. It could be $300. It just depends on
All
the
right, but
physician.
now you have it. Now
Yeah.
you're coming and getting the product.
Yeah.
How about the pricing of the product? Can you discuss that?
Well, sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
So to get their card is $75 through the state. I do want to point that out. So they're going to have $75 plus the amount the physician charges.
Okay.
So we do have products here. Our slim vapes start at $18, and then we have some CBD tinctures that are $90. So
Now this vape for $18, that's what, a pen?
it's a disposable pen.
Disposable pen. And how many times can it be used? Is that for one use only, or?
No, it can last some people a while. It just depends on how hard you pull.
Oh, I see.
So it's 0.5. You know, it's for some people it can last a month.
Yeah.
Some other people it could last a couple of days.
So here's why it's very difficult to say. First of all, I want everybody to know that insurance does not cover this, right? So
that's
none
true.
of the medication or the doctor visits are covered by insurance.
And that's because
so it
of
is
federal
correct.
prohibition still?
Correct,
Right,
correct.
right.
So the thing that's hard to say is, so if you have a bottle of tincture that's 600 milligrams,
Yes.
right? If you're taking 10 milligrams a day, it's going to last you 60 days. If you're taking 100 milligrams a day, it's going to last you 6 days. So I would say on average, the average monthly cost average is around $150, give or take a little bit. No, I'm just not, it's about that. But again,
Seems
we have
reasonable.
patients that spend $70 a month, and we have patients that spend $500 a month. So it really depends on how much and how many different routes are you taking. Are you taking a sativa in the morning and hybrid during the day and
Right,
an indica at
right.
night?
Well,
So that's why it's very hard to give you an exact amount.
Right, what I'm really asking is, how does it compare with traditional drug therapies?
Well, it all depends.
Is
If the
comparable, more expensive?
It's going to be both, right?
Because if somebody has insurance, they're just paying a copay for a prescription. So that and if somebody doesn't have a prescription, then it would probably be cheaper because medications can be hundreds of dollars.
Well, they have I don't know if some people are familiar with Epidiolex. So Epidiolex was the first FDA, first approved to market product that is derived from cannabis. And it's approved for only 2 types of epilepsy, which I can't even pronounce. But 2 types of epilepsy it's approved, and although it is, approved on the market and you can get a prescription for it, it's still gonna cost you, something around $130,000
Very
a year to
expensive, and
use.
yeah.
So that's the thing. If your prescription is covered, you're paying a copay. But if it's not, it's probably going to be on par, if not more, than with medical cannabis.
Now, as long as I've been alive, the government and a lot of so-called experts, politicians, they have pilloried cannabis and calling it a gateway drug, that it's going to lead to stronger stuff. But I believe, now that we've confronted the opioid crisis, and by the way, I'm sure you're aware of the first large-scale arrest of a distributor, that guy Dowd,
Yep.
who's on all the news and everything. Today, isn't marijuana being thought of as an exit drug? In other words, a way to get down from the stronger stuff?
We have many
Has there been a
patients.
sea change in thinking there?
We have many patients that come in here who are trying to transition off of opioids, and medical marijuana has been wonderful for them. They feel better. They're taking less medications.
But they're still using both.
So it's a transition.
Right.
So it's just gonna depend on the person. They'll move farther and farther away from opioids to where they're just using medical marijuana, and they just have a much better quality of life.
Now,
And you have to be very careful because, opioids are addicting because they work in the brainstem, where cannabis does not, so it's not addicting like that. So you have to work with your doctor to properly titrate down and decrease your opioids so you don't get any withdrawal or get sick from that while you're increasing the cannabis to find that balance. And we've had many patients that have either completely gone off of their opioids or, instead of taking 50 a day are now taking 4 to 5. I have a personal experience with my cousin who is disabled, and he has his entire spine is metal from his neck to his tush. and he's had about 15 different surgeries. He was on probably 80 pills a day between antidepressants, anti-inflammatories, pain, opioids, whatever.
Are those maximum dosage? Those
Everything,
pills?
yes.
I mean,
Yep.
I don't know what the numbers are.
Yeah, but I don't know what dosage, but he
Yeah.
was taking about 80 pills of a combination of everything a day. Very depressed, suicidal, gained 200 pounds, everything. So he's from Connecticut. It became legal 2 years later, since it became legal there. He hadn't been on a plane in 25 years. He's visited me from Connecticut twice. He lost 185 pounds. He's now down to 10 pills a day off all his antidepressants, his anti-inflammatories, because he takes so much CBD now. And there's just a little bit of breakthrough pain that he still needs some of his opioids for, but his entire life has changed. He goes to the gym now. He basically described it as the black cloud that was crashing down on me is now lifted, and that's mostly because of all the other medications that he was able to get off of,
All the side
and
effects.
on all the side effects, and this gave him as such, even though he'll always be disabled, it just gave him a quality of life that he hadn't had in over 20 years.
Fine. Now, what percent? Well, let's do a demographic breakdown. What percentage of your clientele would you say would be young? Let's say 18 to 35, middle age 35 to 60, and elderly. Can you give us a rough idea?
So I think over 50 would probably be close to 75%, and
Yes.
then under 50 the 25.
Okay. Now, on those over 50s, what percentage of them? As I see it, there's three categories. Either they've used it once in their youth, and then they haven't used it for decades, and now they're reintroducing it,
Right.
or they've been using it since their youth, and the third category would be people that are new
Correct.
to it. How would you break that down, do you think?
It's really hard to put that in
Do
numbers.
you ask people that? Do you
We
say,
all-
have you ever used it before?
Absolutely. We do that with our first consultation when they come in, because
Right.
we want to get a gauge of where they were at in the past.
Right. What are some of the things they tell you? Do they tell you things like, well, I used to use it, but I stopped, and...
Exactly.
We tell them we're not judging, we want
Right.
to know,
Right,
because
right,
it's the
right.
best way to help you, because
Right.
if you are still using it or have used it, we
Right.
know, have you had any reaction to it? Did it agree with you? Did it not? Have you used it? Did you get relief from it?
Right.
So it's a good way of deciding, of figuring out where to start them and where to go. Now, somebody who's never used before, you're gonna go much slower and lower, because you wanna gauge their reaction
Right.
to it and how
Right.
their body interprets it.
So which of those groups, the non-users all their life, the constant users all their life, and the new users, would you say are the most, shall we say, satisfied or thrilled that this is now, that they can use this? Is there a higher happiness rate?
So I don't think, we don't really have numbers to
Right.
really
Right.
dictate
Just
to that.
anecdotally.
You know, we have people who have never tried it before that come
Right.
in. We have consultation rooms here where they can go in and have privacy, because some people are, you know, embarrassed, or they just don't understand it, and they, you know, it's easier to have a nice quiet room. So we'll bring them into the consultation room and sit down and have an open conversation about, you know, what their thoughts are, what they're looking for, looking at the recommendation from the physician, and kind of build it from there. And like Stephanie said, you know, our motto is start low and go slow.
Right.
We want them to figure out what works best for their body. But you know, there's a lot of questions, especially if they've never used their whole life. You know, a lot of these people have this stigma, the Cheech and Chong days of how things were. But when it actually affects their life or their loved ones, that's where we see the change. And the biggest issue is education. People don't understand. They have a lot of questions, and we're here to help answer those questions for them and help them feel comfortable about it.
And going back to what you said, so someone who's never used it has no idea what it can and cannot do for them. Someone who's used it, they might have used it, you know, back in the day for fun, but then they got sick or pain or whatever, and they found that it gave them relief, so they were using it, but now they have a legal way of using it, but they knew what it could do for them. But a new person who's never had experience with it and didn't even know that it could help with anything other than to get high, those are the ones that are probably most encouraged by this, saying, I had no idea
That's
right?
what I'm
I
trying to
had
get
no
to,
idea,
because-
or I thought this was just, I smoke, I get high, I eat a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? And had no idea that it was actual medicine, that it was part of the pharmacopoeia that was sold in drugstores in the 1800s, that's being researched in other countries all the time. We just need to catch up on that end of it. So I think those people are the ones that are like so incredibly surprised and happy because they had no idea it was even actual medicine that was helping them.
Right. Now, by the way, we talked about price. Oh, you mentioned before we started that there's no taxation of medical marijuana. Can you repeat that for us? Is that right?
Correct. They only tax recreational marijuana,
Which is
medical,
not yet
which
here
is not here. So
in
there is
Florida.
no taxation on medical marijuana in any state, and in this state, we're only medical, so there is no taxation.
Okay. Are there maximum amounts? In other words, if the person has a recommendation, can they just keep coming in? In other words, do you?
So yeah, they're maxed
Track
out
them?
by their milligrams. Oh yes, because we go into the system, and every time a patient is given the recommendation and we dispense to them, we adjust it within that system. So it takes away the milligrams and then once it gets to the point, we always let them know where they're at.
No, I don't mean dosage maximum amounts. I mean just bulk. In other words, can somebody just keep coming in here every day and?
So it's still going to
In other
matter.
words, is there a potential for abuse that people are selling to their friends after they obtain it from you?
Well, we.
Is there a limit?
It depends on the doctor. The limit is the
doctor,
physician.
Yeah, the
doctor
doctor is
sets
set
the
by the,
amount.
yes, we have
And
no
that's-
control over the amounts, we just
Yep.
dispense it.
Right.
Could they come in here every day? Yes, but then at the end of the 70, they can only come in as long as they have milligrams. So when they run out of milligrams, if the doctor feels he or she does not want to give them any more milligrams for that 70-day orders, that's all they can get.
Yep.
If the doctor feels, okay, I don't think you've had that much.
How many milligrams is a typical 70-day amount? Are you talking 100, 1,000, a million?
I've seen a huge variety. It depends on the ailment of the patient,
Right.
because especially if they've never used medical marijuana, the doctors might give them a lower amount of milligrams. But I normally see something in the 10 to 14,000 range on milligrams. I would say it would be a more normal amount.
Right.
And again, also you have to take in consideration what the diagnosis is, what is the patient being treated for. If they have cancer,
gonna be higher.
it's gonna be much higher. And if they have epilepsy with seizures, it's gonna be higher because depending on how much they need it consistently.
Right.
Now, what about repeat business? Once somebody goes through that porthole, or are they going to be, what percentage of them become regular customers? What percentage of them just after a week or two they say, this isn't for me?
Well, the people who benefit from medical marijuana are gonna be on medical marijuana for forever.
Right.
Because it's really helping, unless they had an ailment that can be treated and completely gone.
Right.
And they can be free of that ailment completely and don't experience any symptoms. Remember, medical marijuana doesn't cure anything. We're not saying we're not curing MS and we're not curing Parkinson's, right?
Symptomatic.
Right, it's we're alleviating the symptoms and giving a better quality of life. So as long as those symptoms persist, they're gonna benefit from medical marijuana.
Now, you mentioned earlier you had some firsthand experience with somebody that had gained 180 pounds on opioids and now, or lost 180 pounds. A lot of people are concerned that if I start using cannabis, the munchie syndrome. What can you say to assuage those fears? And by the way, I couldn't help but notice that you're across the street from a Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah. So some
correlation there?
But there's a LA Fitness right around the corner. You didn't see that.
Every action is an opportunity.
And the beach, so
And the
you know,
beach.
you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
run
yeah,
it
yeah.
off, you're good.
So we do talk to our patients about the the benefits and everything about the different strains that we have out there.
Right.
And some of our indicas will cause you to be hungry. So
The indicas have a greater tendency?
yeah, and it just depends.
Yeah,
Every strain, we have a bunch of different strains, and they all have their own little things that could affect the patient.
And if you get the munchies, just choose carrots and celery instead of chocolate.
Stick to
Instead
that.
of
Stick to
chocolate.
that healthy stuff.
The dental bills may go up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, now, and just touching on vaping, we've seen these videos with these vaping devices can explode or set your pocket on fire. But you told me earlier that you're in a sort of a different category than the ones that are exploding. Can you tell us about the safety of these vaping pens in your...
Well, all we can say is, to our knowledge, we have not had any instances. I think usually what causes, and again, I think, I'm not stating a fact,
Right.
that there's usually a flammable substance in the cartridges. With e-cigarettes, there might contain a flammable substance that, when heated, can burst.
Okay.
We do not contain any flammable substances in our products, and I'm sure that if it ever happened, that patients would come to us, and so for our knowledge, no one has ever come to us because they've had that issue.
And we always talk about best housekeeping for where they should store their vapes, where how to charge their vape pen batteries. We always go over that with our patients to make sure that they're safe.
I see.
Like, you don't want to charge it in a wall socket, because if you get a surge, it's going to blow up. It's going to
Have a greater tendency.
Exactly.
Right.
So we always say to charge it in your computer.
Right. All right. So, what would you say among your client base are the main, the most common conditions that you're treating? Would it be sleeplessness? Would it be pain relief? Can you break it down that way?
Yeah, I would call it insomnia and anxiety are very high up on the list, and pain management.
I think when they had some studies, and I think PTSD was the top of the list, and any symptom of PTSD, and a lot of pain.
Right.
A lot of
Now,
pain.
I know we're not really supposed to go into adult use, but it's got to be inevitably legalized at some point, we suspect. Will that change your business anyway? Will that grow your business? Will that put you out of business? How will that work?
Well, I mean, obviously, we'll wait and see what happens. The only thing I can say is, in a state like Massachusetts, where they still have, Curaleaf is in Massachusetts, that's where our headquarters are. They have both adult use and medical,
Right.
And they both do well. Don't
Is
forget,
it one facility? In other words, do the adult users go to the same?
I don't know if it's the same facility, but it is separated. So if you're, I know in like Colorado, California, you go to the left for adult use, and you go to the right for medical.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, though, medical is not taxed.
Right.
Adult is taxed.
Right.
So as long as there's a need, I still think, even though when it's recreational, a lot of people are using cannabis for medicinal purposes, and especially in your over 50 community, they need the guidance of a doctor, because they have multiple comorbidities, right, that they need to control. So they still need to see a doctor. So I think a lot of those type of patients are happy to still go the medical route and be treated by a physician, and know that someone's taking the best overall care of them.
By the way, we were talking about the governor and how he helped bring in flower marijuana. He served in, I believe, what was it, Iraq or Afghanistan, I believe. And do you suppose that his experience in these combat zones may have made him more sympathetic, because he understands better than anyone else what PTSD is among more veterans? And do you think that played a part?
It could have raised his level of awareness, but it's hard to say because I don't know him.
Yeah.
It's sort of like Nixon taking the United States to China. You didn't really expect it coming from.
Right. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a question you'd have to ask him. I've never heard, when he was talking about it, say, due to my experiences. So, you never know.
Well,
it could
of
be,
course.
but
It's got to play to the base.
yeah,
Right?
exactly. And I don't mean my experiences with cannabis. I mean my experience in war and people coming back from war.
When did Curaleaf first start a Florida presence? In other words, how long have you been not doing business in the state?
Just,
Approximately.
Around 2000, well,
17.
well, 2014
14.
was when the law was passed. I know I've been
Right.
with the company 2 years, so, don't forget, before you had any stores, I came on 2 years ago, we had no dispensaries.
Right,
A year later, we have 23.
Right.
So they were in the process of building the infrastructure and growing it. So probably sometime around 2014.
How many
15.
competitors does Curaleaf have in the state of Florida? Is it one or two? Is it a dozen? Is it 100?
Yeah, well, there are currently the 14 licenses given out, but they're at different phases. Some are still in cultivation phase. So right now, I would say there's about 8 companies up and operating with existing stores throughout the state.
Are there
And
any
it's a big
zoning
state.
rules that you can't be near a school?
Yes.
You know, what are the rules about that?
Yeah, well, there are certain rules. You can't be this distance, whatever that distance is to school, or certain other things.
Even though
and
school
then
kid wouldn't be.
it's still
Take them in, yeah.
that's still the law. The other thing that people don't understand is that even though the state has approved medical marijuana, individual cities can determine whether they want the MMTC.
I think Boca Raton said no dispensary.
Right, and
City.
now the city. So the majority of Broward County has moratoriums, where a lot of Broward County is not allowing dispensaries, which is why you see hardly any. I think other than Deerfield Beach, there's one other in Dania Beach. And other than that, in Broward County, there's no dispensaries. I think Coral Springs just passed it to have dispensaries, and I believe Boca did too. So slowly but surely, West Palm Beach had a moratorium. They lifted the moratorium. So slowly, I think it was a lot of the fear of the unknown. And once we started coming and they realized that everything was, great and it benefited people and it didn't increase crime or nothing like that, and everything, you come in here and it's warm and friendly and open. And I think that as their fears were alleviated and more education happened, we invite members of the chamber and the city to come in and look at our dispensaries and see what goes on so they can feel comfortable. And I think that's helped loosen up some of these reins.
Sure. You're still not allowed to do credit card transactions because the federal laws and everything?
Correct. What we do have, as Sean had mentioned previously, is a system called CanPay, which links up to your debit card.
Right.
So it's a third party. And again,
So,
getting back
what
to...
I don't understand is the debit card is, let's say I have a Citibank debit card. I thought the banks just said they won't touch marijuana business. How is that able to be done, given that the banks are afraid of federal?
So it's a third-party vendor that
That's why.
they use it.
Like PayPal or something?
It's very much even like when you go to Cumberland Farms, you can get a discount if you
I
using their
use
Smart Pay app.
SmartPay, yeah.
It's set up the same exact way. It's called Cannabis Pay is the app, and they're able to do that, and that's who we work with right now.
Like you
So-
said, it's a third party
And they get a
situation.
piece, of course, of each transaction, but.
We don't see it on
We
we
don't-
don't see it on our side.
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
However that happens is
Yeah,
not.
we just, it just comes from the debit
So
card.
what percentage of your customers are on that versus people coming in with,
It's probably a maybe 5%. It's not very high.
or on the digital?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they don't. Some people may not feel comfortable with.
So does
using
this
that
create any
method.
security problems? I think you had told me that they relaxed the rules or something.
Yeah, didn't they, I thought we were required, I thought dispensaries were required to have X amount of security guards, and didn't they do away with that?
So, right, it's not really. I mean, we do. I can't really discuss how we handle
No,
the
no,
monies,
I don't want
in the
No,
store.
I wasn't talking about money.
But
I
we're
was
very
just talking
secure. We have a very high-tech security system and alarm system. We have a lot of things in place,
Sure.
panic buttons, different things like that take care of all of our security needs.
But one thing I did want to mention also, when you were talking about cost, we understand that it's a hardship to a lot of people because, there's no insurance covered. So one thing we do is, because we can't have a store in every corner, we do offer free delivery to a statewide. We give 40% off for all pediatrics under 18. All veterans get 20% off, senior citizens get 10% off. Plus we have other special sales, rewards points and everything towards future purchases and first time discounts and other things to try and help offset some of the costs to make it a little bit more
Talk
palatable.
about pediatric use. I understand it requires, 2 doctor
Yeah.
Tell people what's involved with.
So the only thing that's different is that you, obviously, there has to be a certified medical cannabis doctor, but then there has to be a second doctor, does not have to be a certified doctor, and doesn't even have to be a pediatrician, just has to be another doctor
Family
that
doctor.
also, it does, yeah, as long as it's another MD or DO that agrees and signs off on that the child having medical
And
cannabis.
they have to, when they make a purchase, they have to have an adult with them, or?
Yes,
You
they,
You don't
yes.
do business with?
No.
What's the cutoff age where it's an adult?
18.
18, yep.
Yeah.
And,
That under 18, and as well as someone who's not capable of taking care of themselves, they have a caregiver registered in the
Right.
registry alongside of them. They get their own card,
Okay.
and then that person, is the one that can pick up and sign for
I see.
the orders for the
and
patient.
what percentage of your clientele is below 18 in that category, would you say?
I don't have the.
Is it like minuscule? Is it?
I would say it's not very high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be mostly epilepsy.
That's what
Some
the next question was going to be,
yeah,
what are some of the conditions?
I would say mostly epilepsy, of course, cancer, unfortunately, and then some autistic as well.
So now, cancer is a pretty broad term. So in other words, anybody that's ever had cancer is automatically qualified?
That will depend on the doctor.
I see.
Yeah, the doctor makes all that determination on
I see.
what they.
Mm-hmm.
It just really depends on if what they have is beneficial with medical cannabis.
Now, you had a presence over at our, I think it was caregiver fair.
Yep.
Was
Yep.
that the first time that you would come to Century Village?
No, I've been there many a time.
Oh, you have?
I have. I worked with caregivers.
Right.
They're
Are you at the
great.
medical? You know, we have a medical, a health fair.
Yes.
In November and February.
I've been to every Century Village from
so
at least
how are you
several
received
times.
by my
Very
neighbors?
well, very
Yeah?
well. They ask for it, so they ask for the education.
Right.
So through caregivers, the caregiver services, that's a wonderful organization. They had been asked about it, so they brought. So I originally made a contact with them and came in and did an educational seminar, and now I'm booked to come and present and speak in every Century Village throughout the area, doing different educational seminars. Plus, we partake in a lot of the fairs to support Century Village and caregivers and everything that they do. They're both amazing, and then it just gives us the opportunity to educate more people.
And what are some of the questions that my neighbors have asked you? Do they fall into any?
A lot of them are dealing
Categories?
with pain. A lot
Pain.
of them want to get off opioids. A lot of them many of them have been previous users for recreational, and a lot of them are looking for an alternative because I've got the biggest question, which will be, will it help my constipation?
Oh.
That's one of the biggest questions we get, and yes.
This could be the start of a movement.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. On that note, is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to put out there? Because I understand you're going to give us a little tour of the, what do you call it, a showroom?
Just
a bug room? What do you call
our
it?
dispensary.
Yeah.
Our dispensary.
Right. Dispensary,
Yeah,
yeah.
the only thing I want your community to know is that if they feel that they could benefit and their physician does not offer medical marijuana because they're not certified, one, you do not need a prior authorization, or you do not a referral to, you don't need that, because most of the community is used to having to get a referral in order to go to another doctor. For medical cannabis, you do not need any of that. You just need to find a doctor who is certified for medical marijuana. If you have trouble, you can contact us at curaleaf.com or call us on our 877-303-0741, and we'll help find a doctor near your area, or come into the dispensary and ask us. The main thing I'd like to stress, though, is also, even if you're going someplace else, another physician for medical cannabis, still speak to your physician, because they're still in charge of your overall health, and the goal is for everybody to work together to get you as fit and fabulous as possible.
Website?
Curaleaf.com.
So we have a poster right behind you. So it's just like you see it up there.
Yep, there it is.
.com, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, will you take us a little tour right now?
Love to,
All
yes.
right, Sean and Stephanie.
Come with
I wanna-
us, everybody.
What's that?
Come with us,
Yes,
everybody.
we sure will.
Sean's domain.
Here's our retail area of our dispensary. We have,
Are there any clients in the store right now?
in just a minute, there will be.
You stay
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll just stay over here.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of different registers here that patients come up to. We'll call them up and have a little conversation with them about their needs.
Right.
We have some products on display here.
Tell us what we're looking at
We're
here.
looking at different vape pens. We're looking at distillates for concentrates. We have balms. We have capsules.
What about, talk about the topicals? Is that like a jelly or something? You rub it onto?
It's a balm. It's
yeah.
you rub it into the area where you have your discomforts. We have
It's good
CBD.
for arthritis or?
Absolutely, muscle pain.
Muscle pain.
Again, most everything we have is in CBD form and THC form.
Right.
And the thing about the balms or the topicals, when they're not, if it's just surface, it's not ingested into the system, so you don't feel any euphoria if it
Right.
contains THC, because it doesn't get in,
Right,
in
it's
the
like a local
bloodstreams.
anesthetic.
Right, but you have to be careful because there's other type of topicals that are patches that actually do get into the bloodstream. So
Right.
you have to be aware of what you're taking.
Absolutely.
What is this sign over here? It says video booth. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So we have a testimonial booth in our location at this present time where we want to find out people's story about how medical marijuana has improved their life, how it's helped them, and their path. So we ask them to come into the booth. They'll be asked certain questions and give a video testimonial. And at the end of the testimonial, we want to reward them with either a $25 off gift card. We can give them some of our swag, which is t-shirts and things like that. Or they can get a buy one, get one 50% off of a product that they're going to be purchasing.
And what percentage of your clientele takes advantage of this program?
It really depends on if they want to do that or not, because they have to be able to sign a disclaimer form in there that they're going to their information that will be shared.
How is it shared? In other words, somebody sits in a booth, makes a confession, I'm using it.
Right.
Where does that go?
It goes to our corporate marketing, and they review it from there.
And might they use excerpts for advertising purposes, or?
There's a possibility. I'm not 100% on that end of it.
It might also be for our website to have a testimonial.
Sure.
So people can hear stories from people that have experienced or have the same disease state as one of our patients who is willing to give a testimonial, and they can hear their side and how it changed their lives and what it's done for them.
Now, I'm sure a lot of my viewers are wondering, where's the beef? Where's the smokable cannabis? And why can't we see it?
Well, it's in a sealed container.
All right.
So we, for contamination reasons, we keep it sealed up. So we won't be able to show you today.
Oh, you couldn't even show the sealed container?
Oh, it's going to be in a round container, just like very similar to this.
No baggies, huh?
No, it's in a sealed white plastic container. It's round.
Right.
Just like the size of one of our bomb containers. Yeah. So I can. Would you give me
What would be the harm in just showing the sealed container? Is that a
Yeah,
law?
no, it's okay, as long as it's not open, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, just so people get an idea.
So this is.
I see. Oh, it's just like
Yeah,
a.
and if you open it
a
up and
bottle.
in there is
Right,
the, is
but
the
you can't
flower.
open it, that's the.
Right,
No, it
yeah,
has, a,
exactly.
has a sealed
Right.
lid within there.
Is there on the back an ingredients or?
No.
What does it say? I'm just curious.
I don't have my glasses,
It
I
has a
can't read.
disclaimer.
This product has not been evaluated by the U.S. Food and Drug. Oh, okay. What about where your finger is? Any,
It's illegal to transfer.
to another person? Oh, okay.
Can't share.
Marijuana,
Can't share,
contains carcinogens. Now, how, is that just like a legal thing? In other words,
Yes. Yes.
because it's been my understanding that in terms of carcinogenicity, it's very low.
This is state mandated.
State
So the
mandated.
state mandates
So it's an
that we
abundance of
have-
caution,
It's
really.
abundance of caution.
So I don't know
and-
anybody that's been diagnosed with cancer that was caused by cannabis.
It would probably be hard to determine that.
Yeah, but again, the packaging, everything that we do, everything that you see in here
Yeah.
has to be approved by the Department of
Sort of
Health.
like in California, when you check into a hotel, the sign saying carcinogens on the premises. And I said, well, wow, why do I want to stay here? And they said, well, we have a smoking area, so we have to say,
Exactly.
it's like
No.
an excess of caution.
Yeah, no,
Right.
and again, everything that you see is required by the Department of Health. They have to
Sure.
approve everything, and everything that's on the label of our products has to be approved by the Department of Health.
Sure.
So they give us guidelines, so if they say you must put carcinogens may be present, we have to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, I want to thank you very much. This has been
Thank
very
you, Fred.
interesting, very informative, and I'm sure that, a lot of our viewers will be interested. You want to state your address, just in case they'd like to come and see where you are?
Yeah, we're at 148
yep.
North Federal Highway. We're just north of Hillsborough Boulevard on the east side of the street.
And that's Deerfield Beach?
Deerfield Beach. We also
Just
have,
inside Broward, right?
Right. And
Hillsborough is approximately
Yep.
the county line.
Exactly, and then if you live further up north, we have Lake Worth
Lake
Road.
Worth.
We have 1125 North Dixie Highway, which is just north of 10th Avenue. But if you have any questions or concerns or want some more information, like I said, go to curaleaf.com. Also, our 800 number will be there, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, thank you very much. I
Thank
really
you for the
appreciate
time.
it.
Thanks,
All right,
Fred.
we'll just
Thank
end
you.
on a shot of the wonderful banner you have back here.
It's a live moss wall.
This has been Fred Hadley reporting at Curaleaf Medical Marijuana Dispensary in Deerfield Beach in Broward County, Florida. And we've just interviewed Sean and Stephanie and gotten a ton of information about the latest therapy used in this state. Thank you for watching.